Welcome everyone, this is Matt Kai and today we are here for a new video, and usually I don't do this kind of video, but this one is a special video. It's a mukbang video. So what is mukbang exactly? Well, you know, some people may know, some people may not know. A mukbang is very simple. It comes from Korean, and mok in Korean, mokta, is the verb to eat. And they have another word which is pangsong. And pangsong is broadcast. So they mixed the both words and they made one, mukbang. So a mukbang is basically a eating broadcast. And that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna eat some good, like, common Korean dish, and we're gonna talk together. During mukbang, usually people eat maybe large portion of food. I don't have that much because I don't want to, you know, force myself to eat, but I have a decent amount of food. And usually, you know, during mukbang, people either, if it's live stream, they're gonna interact with the viewer. If it's a video, they're maybe gonna talk about what they eat or about any topic. So what we're gonna eat today for our mukbang is very simple. I first ordered online for delivery what's called Bibimpap. Sorry for the pronunciation, I'm not Korean, I'm trying my best. I've been learning a bit Korean, but you know, I'm trying my best. So a bibimbap is probably one of the most well-known and beloved Korean dish to many people. A lot of people may have tried it and didn't know it was Korean. Maybe it happens. But it is very well-known, and I think if you have any Korean restaurant, you could probably order bibimbap. Now the bibimbap is very simple actually, and you can make it at home if you want, and you can find, like, probably I've seen many recipes to make it either on YouTube or on the internet. So if you want to do your own, it's very simple. What is so great about bibimbap, it's because it's that simple. There isn't that much like complicated ingredient. Like usually what you can find in bibimbap, it's spinach. It's also bean sprout, shiitake mushrooms, carrot, of course steamed rice, egg, and meat. And the meat is usually, you know, beef, minced meat. So now in my one, because not all bibimbap are the same, I only have like an egg. I have bean sprouts. I think I have some kind of maybe cabbage. And I have some meat, and I have some zucchini, and I have some spinach. And of course, I have the rice on the side. Now there's one thing that's important about bibimbap, it's also the sauce. That's what makes it maybe a bit more Korean, is because there's one special ingredient in that sauce. And that sauce is red, and it's usually a bit spicy. And the special ingredient, well, it's not super special, but this is what makes the sauce a Korean sauce, is basically what would be called gochujang. Once again, sorry for the pronunciation, I'm not Korean. And this is, gochujang is basically some kind of chili paste that you can add. So the sauce is very simple. It's usually sesame oil, maybe a bit of sugar, water, roasted sesame seeds, vinegar, minced garlic, and of course the special Korean ingredient, the gochujang. Now it's very simple how to eat the bibimbap. I've watched before. Normally it comes into a bowl. Unfortunately, I've ordered delivery, so I end up with plastic things. But the way you eat bibimbap, I'm sorry if I do it wrong for any real Korean, but I think you just put everything together in the plate. All right, you put the rice and you put the sauce, and once everything is put, I think what you do is, a lot of time, the presentation of the food is not great, but when you serve in a restaurant, the presentation is great, and you say, why would I mess up this presentation? And the thing is, the people I've seen eating bibimbap obviously don't want to be eating each thing separately. You want to mix it well together. So what you're gonna do is mix everything together. So this is the way I think people eat bibimbap, they also break the yolk of the egg. Unfortunately, this one seems to be a bit overcooked, so it's not gonna mix well. Normally, I think the egg, like the yellow part of the egg, is supposed to be more, you know, less cooked, so it can be mixed all together. I think everything is a bit solid at the moment. I also waited a bit to do the video, so that's maybe why it's you know, it's hard to mix it all together, but I'm gonna try my best. While I mix my great bibimbap, I'm gonna talk later about what I have on the side, or maybe I can talk about it now. Sorry for the focus, it's gonna come back. Okay, so one thing that I have on my side, it's funny because it's called Banchan, and Banchan is basically the translation for side dish. And I have a numerous type of Banchan next to me, and Banchan is very common. So, you know, when you're eating Banchan, it's like small plates, and it's considered essential part of every meal. Like, I'm not sure they have like every meal, but most of the time when you're eating Korean food, maybe at a Korean restaurant, you're gonna have some banchan. You can always correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Now there's a lot of different banchan because this is side dish, so this is a lot of different food. But maybe you can come back later to the banchan because I think my bibimbap is soon finished to be mixed together. Now, I wanted to talk about a bit of history. And the histories of Bibimbap is fairly simple. The first time we came across the name Bibimbap is been actually in the late 19th century, so it's pretty recent, if you know what I mean, compared to a lot of food. And yeah, it came into like a cookbook from the 19th century. Now there's an origin that comes like further. In the past, there was something called cordon bang, I think. Cordon bang is a bit similar to bibimbap, and that was maybe the thing that was before the bibimbap, and because it's from the 14th and 16th century, the cordon bang had a realistic and portrait component to it. It was eaten on the eve of the Lunar New Year and allowing people to clear out their pantries at the end of year's end, throwing whatever they left in the pantry so they don't waste any food. And from that, what I was mentioning earlier is that later farmers that was doing the harvest, they were doing some kind of the same kind of mix, and they were mixing things together, and that would be the origin of bibimbap. I don't know if I was very clear, but the predecessor of bibimbap would be called cordon bang, and that was what we were doing, leftovers all together to make a dish. And that's why bibimbap can be very different in a lot of ways. Now that it's ready, we can try it. That's nice. That's nice because you have all the flavors that's mixing together and they go all well together. The sauce, the rice, the egg, the zucchini. It's great. It's funny because it's my first time shooting a mukbang video, but this is also the first time for me eating a bibimbap. Now we can maybe come back to the banchan. So the banchan seems to originate way longer ago than bibimbap, because bibimbap is fairly recent and the predecessor of bibimbap was also pretty recent. Whereas this one, the theory I think about it was that it was a dish during the mid-Three Kingdom period. It's what it's called. I don't really do research about that. And it was around like 300 after the Christ. And it was a time where the Buddhists were heavy influence what like the Buddhists were a heavy influence, and meat consumption was highly discouraged. So as a restyle, seasoned vegetable-based dish became the focal point of Korean cuisine, and that's what they say like Banchan would originate from. So it was written from a long time ago, actually. Now, I didn't talk much about Banchan, like what you can find in it. But it's fairly simple. I'm gonna try to show you. You're gonna have probably a video up here for up close, but so this is side dish. I have 10 side dish. The number is not really common. Like you're not gonna have 10 side dish every time. You can have 5, you can have 12. It really depends. And this kind of side dish usually it's a lot of different small things, and you can find some tofu, which is plant-based protein. You can find some cold noodles. You can find some mushroom. You can find some soya bean, and all different stuff. I don't know everything that's in here. The reason is because on the website they ordered, they didn't tell, because they say it can change every day based on what they have. So Banchan is also a bit made with what you have. Now in the Banchan there is this very popular food, Korean food that would be kimchi, the most, I would say, most popular Korean food. And kimchi is usually served as a banchan. It can be served for all the dish, but it's usually present when you're having banchan, when there's banchan on the table, which is, like we said, pretty much most of the time when you're eating Korean. Now, obviously, it's hard to eat and talk at the same time, so you have maybe a part of the video where I'm going to be eating and loving the food. But in any case, it's something that really mixed well together. And, there's different things, like you have spinach, but you also have like beans and zucchini and all, and you feel maybe that's too much. But no, that's mixing pretty well, and you have the egg and the meat. I'm just a bit disappointed in terms of maybe the quantity, but it should be decent enough. Well, it's just a bit expensive for the price. Now, I forgot to mention, but right now we are in Australia, in Melbourne, and it's pretty easy to find Korean restaurants around. So there's also you can go, eat at a Korean restaurant, or you can also order online. It depends. Not all restaurants do it. I think the reason why is because a lot of Korean dish, they serve in like big pots and really hot. So obviously when you deliver, it's not the same experience. Even the Bibimpap and all this stuff is not the same experience. But to shoot a video, or even during COVID time, it's always easier to get delivered. You have a more private space. If I were to do it in a restaurant, it would be maybe like pain, Now the bibimbap translation, I think something called mixed rice, or like mixed rice assorted with vegetables and meat. And yeah, that's, I would say, the literal translation, even if it's not really a literal translation. But I'm nearly finished with the bibimbap. Now, if you never tried Korean food and you don't really know the culture and you stumble across this video randomly, I would strongly advise you try. And a lot of people say it's very spicy, but it really depends on what you're eating. I'm not too sensitive to spice, but as an example, the bibimbap, this one, I don't know, maybe there's stronger ones, but this sauce wasn't that strong. So if you're okay with spice, you won't have any issue eating a bibimbap because the spice is not that strong. You could think maybe, because it's chili paste. Well, is gonna be very strong, but it's not. Okay, let's now go into the banchan. So we have a lot of different ones like I mentioned. Now there's some, I'm not sure what this is. It looks like, still looks like, what do you call again? I forgot. This is interesting. Actually, I'm confused. I don't really know what is it. I thought it was maybe some kind of tofu, but I think it. More something made with like fish or something. It's a shame I don't know all the names of all these dish. I've checked like a couple name of banchan, but except for the kimchi, I don't think there's like sokju namul. They usually do roasted how you call it again, zucchini, which would be called like hopak pokem, but I didn't find any of these. And they have some kind of, so like, I don't know, it's not really a cake, but it's some kind also of chorim, but there isn't any of these, so oh, I forgot to mention, when you're eating, if you want to say enjoy your food in Korean, well, it's very simple. You have to say 잘 먹겠습니다. And the meaning is I will eat well. That's the meaning it gives. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the exact translation. Or there's more like context to it, that's what I mean. But yeah, when you're eating, you say, before eating, you say 잘 먹겠습니다, which is, it's not like in English when you say enjoy your meal, it's more like I will eat well. Now, what's so nice with the banchan is you get to eat a lot of different food. So it's very nice. Because when you're eating Korean food, it means you're always eating with a lot of, it's not just one thing, you're eating a lot of different things. So you're discovering the culture maybe faster, like you're discovering more food all at once. See, I didn't mention that this was eggplant. I didn't mention in any of the recipe. This will be tofu. And that's probably good. This I'm not sure what it is. Unfortunately, I cannot say. But let's try. This is nice. It's a bit like an omelette. It feels like a bit like an omelette with the veggies inside and spring onions. This one looks like I wonder if in some kind of, I don't know, there's the infamous, we cannot stop the video before we eat the infamous kimchi. This is the infamous kimchi, usually with its red aspect. You could say, oh, once again, it's very spicy. No, it's not. Now, once again, depends what kind of kimchi you eat, because there's a lot of different ways of preparing kimchi, but most of the time kimchi is a bit spicy, the one you have in banchan, but it's not too bad. Let's be honest. I've tried Korean food and I always say it's very spicy, but maybe I didn't get to the dish that was spicy. I mean, I mostly did Korean barbecue, so maybe that will be the reason. This was the cold noodles. Once again, soybean we had in the Bibimbap, so it's a bit the same, unfortunately. And to finish, some mushroom. And once again, it's a shame because in the bibimbap, I think it's supposed to have mushrooms, shiitake mushroom, but I didn't have any. So thankfully with banchan, I do get to eat mushrooms. All right, well, we're pretty much done. There's still a bit of quantity, but the video would get too long and too boring if I were to eat everything all at once. But we had to try a bit of everything. Everything was super nice. Everything was super great. You have, you know, the noodles. You have, that's the thing. Like you have to be ready to eat like a full meal when you're eating Korean sometime, and be prepared to eat a lot of things. And when you finish eating, you can say 잘 먹었습니다. It basically means I ate well. So it's very simple. 잘 먹겠습니다. I will eat well. And at the end of the meal, fairly simple. I ate well. 잘 먹었습니다. All right. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you find interesting facts and you maybe have learned more things about the Korean culture and the Korean food. And yeah, I hope that your interest with the origins of the dish that I mentioned